Good morning, everyone. Today is the December 6th, 2022, and today is our weekly SIG Node meeting, and we have a bunch of the topic. And also welcome back to Sergey. I noticed that the morning I opened the SIG Node agenda, I saw, of course, then I also know you ran the sidecar earlier, sidecar, but we missed you last couple weeks. So welcome back, and maybe we start with as usual. So Sergey, you want to update the team about our PR status and CAP status here? Thanks.
Yeah, we're entering 127 development. We'll enter it soon. So not much happening, but I see some PRs being created and not much being merged or closed. So if you have energy, I think right now there will be more attention to enhancements repositories and Kubernetes repository. So if you have energy and time, please review what you can. Thank you.
I think maybe we should start a 127 planning call or start seeding the doc together. And maybe, I think next week is the last opportunity, I think, before the break. So maybe we can do first pass and then another pass in Jan.
Yeah, and I missed a couple meetings. Did you make a retrospective or
no, we haven't done that either. So maybe we can combine both of the topics for next week.
It's a good idea.
Maybe one of you to put an agenda for next week. So block the time for that one as earlier as possible. So and propose how much time we hope we can have. Is that
I'll add it to the agenda, and
sure,
if Sergey or Yuvan or someone wants to work on it with me, we can go together. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. So next one, I think we have the demo. So Mano, I already make it both you and another the speaker.
Atanas. Yeah, we're not doing a demo today. We weren't ready for a demo. I thought I had put that in there, but we are starting work on a CAP for pluggable resource management in Kubernetes, and I can go through the diagrams I presented here before. I've been speaking with Kevin Cluse and Patrick Orley regarding dynamic resource allocation, maybe piggybacking off of some of that work and incorporating that in this to make it basically take dynamic resource allocation and here I'll turn my camera so I'm a person. Basically take dynamic resource allocation and use that as a base instead of, because we were going to use basically device plugin, but I can run through a slide deck quickly to give people an idea of what we're talking about. And then we're looking for people who want to participate in a working group to make sure the design is right as we go forward.
You are the co-host, so you can, yeah.
All right, let me share. You don't want to see my whole screen, it's too big to find that. Here we go. There we go. So basically the target customers we've been talking to, and there's more than this, are HPC, MLAI, telco, and then WASM type workloads. Telco includes anything like FlexRAM, that sort of thing. And so we were looking at ways to incorporate CPU management in there because they need a mix of shared and static cores and also isolated cores. So there's only 3 different types of cores they're looking at. But then when you start wandering around the sustainability path, now you want cores at different frequencies and you want to be able to schedule these accordingly and start treating cores more like a resource of different states, right? Instead of like homogeneous like we do today. And so going down that path, we were looking, we had this discussion back in December of other use cases in addition, but also there's still the state that with operators today, you still have to talk to the API server. So if you're doing on the node resource management, for instance, with Power, because we have the Power Manager as well, you have to talk to the API server. And then it's not until the operator is set up that you can do that. And other people are doing this with operators as well, but it's not ideal. It's added traffic. I can go through this full list, but basically the point is to make kubelet more like a microkernel with the allowance of special custom drivers for resources. instead of pushing all of that management into Kubernetes. So the plan here, so here's what we have currently. So we have topology manager, memory manager, device manager, and CPU manager. Pardon, I don't also have the dynamic resource allocation here. I haven't updated that since that went in just recently. And we have all the managers talking to each other internally, right? So you have container manager, topology manager, and all the hint providers going in, choosing topology today. And where we'd like to go is basically have, I'll skip to here. Basically, phase one is to have a default plugin that does everything we do today. We do have this working. So this was the demo we do want to show, is basically we can get this working with the plugin and then feed into the kubelet and then have these resource plugins externally. Topology info for the first round would still have to be passed through because the topology manager, but the second round basically goes and pulls that in. But these were old slides. So after talking to Kevin on Monday and Patrick, I think instead we'd like to use dynamic resource allocation so also we can get the different cores externalized to the scheduler all the way up. So, but basically the internals of your resource management plugin look more like this. You have the kubelet, the container manager, and then you have the resource manager. That's basically what you're doing to plug in. And this lets also, if you're doing on the node resource management, for instance, power, and part of sustainability, that's part of the reason that power is part of this, you're able to directly pull in information from the kubelet as far as the pod's running instead of having to use the API server. So this reduces your load on the API server and your sensitivity to how they're doing. Proposed next steps is we do have an issue open, so we've done that already, and that's in the references section, but we want to publish a KEP for pluggable resource management, submit code which covers the plugin mechanism and first plugins for community discussion, and first plugin being, of course, the default one. And of course, at this point, it would be gate logic, right? So you can disable the current internals or you can do it externally. The demo we have is actually using the code that's already topology manager, CPU manager, memory manager as is and rolling it into a plugin. So it's not added, it's not duplicated code or added code. We have end-to-end compatibility and we want to double check that the performance impact of the resource management versus standard Kubernetes is not worse. And support the current state of device manager together with the pluggable resource manager. So that's what we're trying to work on. We're looking for other people to be engaged, community support, all these things. Sergey, you've seen all this before as well. Here's the issue that we've created, and we should have a KEP started by next week for people to start contributing to. Goal is hoping for 127, but we'll see. And then we had an initial RFC. I see Sasha's on here. He was also part of that. So, any questions, comments? I can start a working group also with the within Slack, if that helps, so people can meet and we can have further discussions. I know I had started this a while ago, but we have some stuff that we have to attend to first.
Manu, can you share the, sorry, can you, yeah, can you share the, sorry, can you share the link to our agenda? People can take a look because you have the reference and you also have the really good diagram for the high architecture proposal, right? So,
yeah, I'll be glad to share. Is there, I guess people can reach out to me on Slack if they want as well. But
one thing I wanted to point here is that what we discussed, Marlo, with you is there are two aspects of this work. First aspect is obviously technology, like how we do it exactly, what kind of obstacles we need to jump over, and like what implementation details we need to do. But also second aspect is community aspect. We need to make clear that this work is not to benefit specific vendors. It's probably like we will have some set of open source plugins that will work for everybody. And I think it's a vendor's interest to share their plugins as well. So it wouldn't be
Absolutely.
islands of isolation when some people may work with only a subset of customers, and Kubernetes will will fragment because of this work.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. Part of my hope is that just like Kubelet, how we have the scheduling plugins, is to do something similar here, so that we can have ones that are specific for particular types of workloads. Because, you know, not everyone's going to want the fancy, you know, telco plugin because they're not running telco.
Okay, thank you for starting the cap. I think we can move discussions there unless anybody have questions now.
So Milo, have you decided when it is the time for the subgroup?
Until 11 a.m.
I'm hoping in the next week or two that we can start discussion. So I'll put a bunch of times up today, and then people can enter in. I understand we're right against holidays, but I'd like to at least get enough that those of us who do work somewhat during holidays can get some work done as far as getting where we want to be and make sure that we're not shutting anyone out.
Cool. Any more questions here? Okay, let's move to next topic. Paco, I just made you co-host, and do you want to talk about your proposal here?
This is only some questions, because in the C group V2 of memory usage, and the current feature gate is alpha, and I think there's some problems here, and also there's some comments that we probably need a pod level setting for it. But now we only have a memory throttling factor in Kubernetes. And I think the current factor is not work as expected in my opinion. The first problem here is I want to talk about can we optimize this behavior to make it considering the memory request. This is the first proposal here. And another proposal is that the defaulting value is 0.8 now, but this may make some pod like Java to have some performance issue because we set the memory high in C group V2. This would be a problem if someone enable this feature gate. So I think the defaulting value is not that proper. That is the second question. Okay. Then I just propose some simple idea about how to make it pod level. But before we move it to pod level, I'm not sure need we optimize the factor here. Okay, that's my question.
So I think, Paco, we chose that number as something that we don't have to worry about. It was an initial alpha, and we just wanted some number. And I think basically to move that forward, we are looking for feedback. So this is in a way feedback from you, which is great. And then we can figure out like what is the best way to set it. Like, should we make it configurable at the kubelet level, or do we really expect that it will have to be done at each pod level, or can it be tied to like your QoS classes, for example? So those are the different options we have. So maybe we can, I guess maybe another alpha is in order for this feature, and then we can iterate on it. I don't think like moving to a pod level one is the right step for now.
Yeah, just to provide another comment. I think we had some discussion when we were originally designing this, like to put it on the pod spec or not to put in the pod spec. And I think there was a lot of discussion that it would kind of add some confusion if we would add it on the pod specs. We tried to come up with some heuristic, right, which is the 0.8, but I think it makes sense that it's not always going to work. And I like the proposal you put together of taking into account the memory request, kind of making it more like a step function, because I think basically, like, if I understand correctly, your concern is kind of if the memory limit is kind of very high, then the 0.8, you know, the throttling will be kind of lower, right? So you're gonna want less delta between the memory.high and memory.max, sort of, right? Is that kind of the concern, if I understand correctly?
Yes, I just started this testing I do some initial testing before we use this feature gate. So we found the problem, and this may be other customers' problem, I think.
I see.
I just saw that's the formula Paco put it here. For me, the first reaction it is actually we punish guarantee workload even more, because we don't take the request into consideration. So the burstable can play the game. Right? So then you are kind of the more encourage people using burstable, because the formula don't take off the request in. We have the similar problem when we first have the eviction policy. Eviction, like we are at the system level, and we detect this one, so which one to kill. So the original algorithm also it is have the problem, is kind of more polished, obviously polish the people. Even for the burstable, like we didn't take off the request in, but the customer, actually certain customer really do the resource management well and the monitoring and put the request number is better, but people can game in that one. So we spot that problem.
Okay.
This problem. So this is, I think the Paco, you sparked the right problem here. Potential could be make the user, especially for we are as the platform offer the vendor, right? So so people might scheming these things, and so they could schedule earlier because they ask a really limited of the request, but to make sure they are not a throttle, using more resource but not a throttle.
Oh yes, that's the problem. So what's the next step? Would Kami update the cap for this feature, or I don't know what is the next step. Which next step is better?
Yeah, I think maybe update open a PR with some alternatives, and we can discuss which is the best path forward.
Okay,
David.
fine.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing as Myrna. I think if we open up new PR to the cap, I think it's something we want to iterate on in next release anyways. So I think this is really good feedback and good time, and we can try to update it and figure out what the best solution forward is. One of the other pieces of feedback I can just say I also received, I did a talk about this feature at KubeCon with Mernal, and one of the pieces of feedback we received is some folks actually wanted to completely disable memory.high being set in some cases because they don't want any throttling at all for their memory. So basically they only want the kind of previous behavior. So the problem right now is it's kind of once you turn on the feature gate, all pods will have a memory.high set. And I think some folks wanted to kind of opt out on a per pod basis. So that's also another kind of thing we should consider. So anyways, I think we can kind of collect the different feedback and figure out how we can update it.
Yeah.
So may I suggest, David, you also put your feedback. So we have the central Google Doc to collect people's feedback. Paco's Doc, right? Since we initiate that one, so can we put what we heard and all the other inputs? People feel free to put there. So then we could have like the proposal enhancement cap, right? So based on the current how we are going to. Then we can debate and discussing over the cap. But the first start, put the feedback into the doc. What kind of things we already can't spot? What kind of the problem we can't spot?
Makes sense.
Okay, so thanks, thanks for your comments.
Thanks. Next one, Michelle, do you want to talk about the data on Kubernetes? I didn't see that Michelle is here. So the storage. Oh, let's come back to it later. And she mentioned that to join later, 10:30. Claudia, do you want to talk about your proposal?
Hello. So we have a small issue regarding kubelet on Windows. Basically, there's an issue which occurs whenever a plugin has to re-register on Windows, because at the moment the reconciler and plugin manager basically looks at the timestamp to figure out if the current plugin has to be re-registered or not. But time measurements on Windows are a bit less fine-grained as on Linux. Pretty much, if you call time.now on Windows consecutively, you're going to get the same timestamp. And the graininess is something like between 1 and 15 milliseconds. So basically, if the plugin has to be re-registered within that window, it will not, because it will basically have the same timestamp, and so it will not. We currently have a couple of unit tests which are failing because of this on Windows. You can see them here, pasted in chat. There are basically two plugin manager tests which are failing. And you can even see in the error message that says that expect the timestamp to be newer than the old one, which it isn't. And I have sent a pull request for this. I think it's linked in the document, which proposes to change the reliance on those timestamps. Again, basically, currently the reconciler detects whenever a plugin has to be re-registered based on the timestamp. Right now, I'm proposing to just use instead the UID, which is set whenever the desired state of world plugins are updated. Then the reconciler will notice that those are different, and then re-register properly. The unit tests for Windows pass with those changes for those unit tests. So if you could take a look, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks for the circuit. Do you want to take a look about this PR of this one? So yeah, we need to fix the treat. That's the high priority to fix our test grade.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks to support this problem, and yeah, we'll address as soon as possible, and we'll review your PR. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So Sergey, you are next.
127, right? So there is no rush to get it in 126. I mean, it's almost impossible, I think. Is there
Yeah,
any?
I think it's not for
Yeah.
126.
Okay, so it's not like super urgent, but it's reasonably urgent. Okay, thank you.
But we need to fix this one just for test grid. And all the test grid
Okay.
always just by literally I think, okay, let's fix that as soon as possible, right? Otherwise, how we are going to know the issue, block the future issue, right? So that's all. So Sergey, you are on the next one. Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight, give an update on Sidecar working group. We started it a few weeks back, and we've had 3 meetings so far. You can find all the meeting agenda and recordings in a document I linked to the agenda. What we've been discussing in these meetings is what were original proposals and requirements for sidecar containers. We scoped it down. We cut out proposals that were rejected in the past, and we know why they were rejected. Then we formulated new proposal, and on today meeting earlier this morning, for me morning, we discussed how it may look like in YAML. We still have open questions about termination ordering and what kind of improvements we can make on termination stage. But I think we're pretty close to final proposal on how sidecar containers may look like in 127. I plan to send update on this effort later today in case there are some people who cannot participate in discussions and want to highlight some problems with the proposal or tell us something that about scenarios that we don't support and have to support with this proposal. Otherwise, I think we are pretty close to what may be a final design for 127. Yeah, as I said, all recordings are uploaded, so you can watch what we've been discussing.
Thanks, Sergey, to run the work group for this long-lasting issues. We've been back and forth many times for the last couple of years. So looking forward, you have the report. Actually, the Michelle joined us. So Michelle, do you want to talk about data on Kubernetes? Thanks.
Yes, I can quickly, hopefully it won't be too long, but yeah, basically there's a end user Kubernetes group where folks there talk about running stateful workloads on Kubernetes. There's a lot of database vendors who are building operators for their databases. And there's also just end users who are using those operators. And so that forum currently, they give a lot of talks and they trade a lot of best practices with each other on like how to write an operator and best practices like setting pod anti-affinity and PDBs and things like that. I wanted to start an effort to have more active engagement with that community from the Kubernetes side. And so we can actually, because they're end users and they're basically our customers. So I wanted to have a more active engagement where we can kind of understand, all sorts of requirements that they have and other things they would like to see us have in Kubernetes to support their use cases more. And so we reached out to them already, and we're going to schedule in January a session to have a roundtable basically between Kubernetes maintainers and the members of the community, and we can just start kind of brainstorming ideas and get their feedback on Kubernetes and what's it like. And so I'm basically making a world tour of all the SIGs to see who in all the various SIGs might be interested in attending this roundtable. I started a doc to just collect names so that when we end up scheduling the first meeting in January, I can reach out to everybody involved and to get them on the invite. And then I think in terms of long-term, I think long-term, it might be interesting to see if there's enough ideas discussed there to form a working group around stateful workloads. But I think we're not there yet, but I think maybe after one or two of these roundtables, we can get a better sense of, how many problems might be worth solving in this space. So yeah, that's all I want to say. If you're interested in participating, please add your name to the doc.
Thanks, Michelle. And yeah, we are keep hard from the community complaint. Kubernetes don't manage this database very well. Here it is, every time I ask what it is details, and then they give me the concrete example, what kind of thing can be configured, how how our resource management and how our Kubernetes in certain cases can, and also container runtime interface should do that. Always kind of do the detail, but it's not down to the specific, what's the problem domain, right? What's the problem specification? And another problem for me, it is each different database have a different requirement. So it's not abstract, aggregate, abstract enough for us as the signal to attack, or effectively we can partner with the storage team, scheduling team, or the other team to work together and include of the SIGNet. So I'm glad we have finally formed some of the effort like this, workforce like this, so we could talk to many database vendors, Stateful workload vendor, and figure out aggregate of all the problem, abstract the problem, and define the problem so we can work together to solve that problem. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly the
Michelle.
purpose. And I think, Ryan, you had a question about the doc. I
Yes.
gave access to the Kubernetes dev mailing list. Are you on that list?
I don't. Yes, I am on that list. Okay, I'll go back and double check. Thanks for looking into that.
I know they changed. They recently changed the Kubernetes dev mailing list. I think there's like it used to be a Google Groups, and I don't know if it's still, but it's dev@kubernetes.io, which is where I shared it with.
Any more questions here? Okay, let's move to last topic, Sergey.
Waiting for mute button. Yes, ahead of next meeting retrospective and kept planning, I wanted to highlight this perma betas and perma alpha feature gates that we have in SIG Node. Some of them not owned by SIG Node, maybe like belonging more to SIG security or some other SIGs, but I wanted to highlight them, and in case somebody wants to take an ownership of that, and maybe if you have time, maybe we can go through them and share some information if anybody has information. I think AppArmor was planned for 126 GA, but maybe it was moved to 127. Yeah, Andrew commented on that. Next one, QoS reserved. It was in alpha since 1.11, and it's marked as owned by SAS. And I don't know the status of it. Was it anybody even using?
Yeah, I think we can take a look, like someone from Red Hat, like Ryan and team will take a look at that one. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't need it, let's remove it. Or if we want it, let's progress it to beta. Okay, rotate certificate. This obviously needs to be G8. There are so many documents out wild saying if you use Kubernetes, you have to enable this flag. So yeah, maybe. Don, do you know the history? Was it developed by us or SIG Security? I didn't find any cap.
By the McDennis. Yeah, it is by community, which is Google now. Yeah, McDennis actually is the main leading out that effort. Yeah.
Okay, I can try to ping him and see what he has.
I think McDennis can help to get, just like the Timo Claire, right? So I asked him, but he actually tried to recruit the more people. So we try to grow more people for community. So this is why AppArmors take really long time, because he don't have bandwidth, but he initiated that one. So he want to other people maybe, but he can lead other people. So this is maybe McDennis is the same thing here. So yeah.
Yeah. Is anybody on the call interested in GA in this feature? I think it's just mostly paperwork, but maybe some tests, promotion to what is called conformance may be required and stuff like that. Anybody? Okay, if you have interest, contact me or Mike. Next one, custom CPU CFS quota period. Does anybody has information about this feature?
Manu, please correct me if I'm right. So a while back, there's the kernel bug. On the
Yeah, so yeah, right. So the kernel bug got fixed. Yeah.
yeah, this is kind of a workaround for that kernel bug, if I remember correctly. So, so I'm not sure. Do we still need this one?
Okay, put me down for this one. I'll take a look. And
yeah, thanks. Yeah, this is a while back. There's the kernel bug really damage all those customers if you enable CPU limit. So then this is one of the configuration workaround we introduce our system before kernel can fix. It's okay.
Yeah, okay. Next one is Francesca wants to take it.
Yes, I'll be happy to help. The API itself graduated to V1 GA in 120, around 120, but you're right, you're totally right. The Kubernetes support is still beta, so I'm more than happy to help here.
Yeah, and again, it's mostly paperwork, but maybe some conformance test and like some cleanup maybe needed.
Yeah. I think we are in relatively good shape, but yes, totally. I will work on that in 127, totally.
Thanks, Francesco.
I believe topology manager was discussed for 126 as well, but I haven't. I forgot what happened.
I guess capacity.
Okay. There are any interests in the call? It's a little bit fresher than everything else, 118, so it can wait for someone.
I have a question. For my understanding, do we want or need to graduate the other resource manager, namely memory manager, before to graduate topology manager, or can we go in parallel or in any order?
Is memory manager still in beta?
I think so. It should be beta. It's one of the freshest beta, but should be beta.
Oh, I see.
It's really, I don't know. I'm asking because I just don't know what we prefer.
Manu, we briefly touch base this one in previous SIG Node. If I remember correctly, our decision it is graduate the existing one, unless there's
yeah, that's what I remember. Yeah, when Derek was also that's what we decided.
Yeah. So our decision, our agreement, it is to graduate the existing one to GA has the higher priority, unless some people think about that it should be deprecated with all the new change. But so far, I don't think about all the new proposals can completely replace previous one. And so, so I just want to mention here. So I do think about the other things have the higher priority. Yeah.
I think Marvel's proposal will add a flag to disable all of them in favor of out-of-process plugins.
Correct.
But,
yeah, but I think we should graduate it, and that can then come later, right?
So can we have sounds like even last time we made a decision, but things change. People might not involve that decision, and also, so can we have a one pager to describe all those features? I remember one pager, but there's the new changes, not to include all those kind of things. Can we at least make that up to date? And then we can have like from our SIG Node strategy, we can discuss. So resource management work group, could we put all those kind of things together, and memory management, NUMA node management, CPU management all together, and the current status, and what's our strategy, which one to graduate, which one it is a new feature add additional functionality and which one is the new enhancement. So can we have something? I think that will be beneficial for the community, beneficial for this group, and also for our users.
I just want to highlight one thing here. We previously graduated device manager and CPU manager in this release already. So maybe that should be taken into consideration as well. It probably wouldn't make sense that we make a different decision now for other resource managers when we already made a decision to graduate CPU manager and device manager.
Thanks, that's a good point, yeah.
Consistency is not a strong suit of Kubernetes, but I think it's a reasonable point. Okay, any takers on having this one pager? Maybe we can find people by next week. Okay. Next one is download API huge pages. Who now is suggesting Sasha and Ryan?
Yes, Sasha will do it. I'll talk with him.
Thank you. And finally, probe termination grace period.
Yeah, I added this one to the list.
In the chat, I saw Brian was interested in that. Or I misunderstood. Somewhere. No, maybe I misunderstood.
I have a PR open for Ryan Phillips.
Oh, okay. You're already working on that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. If we can clean up all this in 127, we will be out of perma-beta completely. It only took, what is 27 minus 19? 8 releases. But I have some doubts that we will make it happen. Okay. It's always this topic.
Okay, that's all for today. Any other topic people want to board up and or maybe want to discuss here? Otherwise, everyone got 15, almost 30 minutes back. Okay, thank you. Bye. See you next week.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.